Hey team, welcome to the channel, man. Stoked to see you. So I had a really good question about how to know and understand what your left and right lateral limits are as it relates to leading soldiers. You know, we're all going to I have a book full of crazy wild stories that you can't make up from things that I've seen along the way. And I know that you are facing challenges and adversities when it comes to leading soldiers to accomplish the mission and improve your organization. So I want to try to hopefully shape some things for you that you can put in your kit bag so that you can, manage these types of situations and these types of soldiers that we all have to deal with from time to time. Again, man, if this is something that you're interested in, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so you can stay up to date on some future content. So I think one of the first things that we have to really understand is that knowing these things is really all about having trust and confidence from our seniors, right? If our seniors can trust our word, if our actions have integrity just embedded deep down in them, that when our yes is a yes and our no is a no, and when somebody asks us a question, that they know that they're going to get an honest answer, that's huge. One of the things that I've made this mistake in the past, and I know a lot of folks have, is not communicating upwards near enough as we should. You know, if I have somebody who has a problem, I want them to tell me that they have a problem and what they're doing to fix it. So, whether you're a squad leader, whether you're a platoon sergeant, whether you're a team chief, talk to your next hire about the challenges that you're facing and what you're doing to work through them. That is one of the biggest ways of maintaining that open line of communication, of building that trust, and knowing that our seniors know that we are embodying this sense of integrity. Does that make sense? Like, don't hide things, because when you hide them, it's going to come up again in the future, and that's when it's going to be a surprise, right? And people are going to start asking more and more questions. So if you have an issue, just say, hey, platoon sergeant, I had this issue this morning. The soldier was late, and this is what I did. I don't need you to take action. It's just for your essay. And that doesn't mean every single little teeny tiny issue that we bend the ear off of our seniors, but when we have issues that come up that are a little bit more challenging, maybe a little bit more complex, or that this cat is going to try to do something sideways, then maintain that open line of communication. I learned that lesson a long time ago by keeping something from my platoon leader that ended up having to come back, and I had to answer a lot of questions about it. Ultimately, it all worked out, but it was a hard lesson learned, and from that moment on, I've always maintained the best line of communication I could with my immediate supervisor. So do that and see if things don't change for you. Now, I think, that we should, as leaders, especially as NCOs, we do need to try to push some left and right lateral limits a little bit. If I can, on the positive note, if I can push somebody out early and the job is done and there's nothing around for them to get done, and I can demonstrate that that's all been done, and I can push them out early, then I want to do that. On the flip side, if I want to keep somebody a little bit later to get some more work done, then I want to be able to do that too. If I want to do some kick-ass training, I want to be able to do that as well. But that's not necessarily dealing with an individual soldier, right? So let's say you have an issue and somebody shows up late, right? And maybe at first you just do a little on-the-spot correction, right? It's not a counseling, it's an on-the-spot correction. And so nothing gets documented. And the next week, the same soldier shows up late again. And this time, you do another on-the-spot correction. Like, man, you've got to get right. We can't be doing it and working like this. And again, because it was an on-the-spot correction, you didn't put anything on paper. And it goes to the third time, and now you start to put things on paper. Or, even before that, maybe with that on-the-spot correction, you try to do some sort of corrective training. Now, if you do corrective training, man, I'm telling you, you need to document it on a 4056. So when you're thinking about corrective training, whether it's on the spot or whether it's through a counseling session, you need to think about, what is the intended impact of what I'm trying to do? Because it should ultimately be to course correct somebody into doing the right things, right? If the corrective training that you're using is never in any legitimate right mind going to lead them to doing the right thing, then it's probably not corrective training. It's probably something else. And if it's something else, then you probably need to go back to that first thing that we talked about of communicating and say, I had this issue. This is what I'm thinking about doing. Is this going to be good to go? And that's an okay conversation to have. Hey, I want to do this. Is that going to be okay? And then once that senior blesses off on it, like, yeah, man, go rock it and come back and let me know. Then that's kind of your green light to know that you have the support from your NCO support channel or your chain of command for what it is that you're trying to do. Now, that happens at all echelons, right? Let's say as a company, we have a piece of SI that's unaccounted for. Before we start keeping people back late, we're talking to the CSM, we're talking to the battalion commander and say, hey, we're not going to let anybody go. In fact, we're calling everybody back in and we're putting all hands across America. Because that is impacting that training calendar, right? Does that make sense? And so I need, and I want my boss to have that okay, and to have our boss's boss, be aware of what it is that we're trying to do. So, but outside of that, when you're thinking about, and again, that could be going back to it, having somebody come in early, having somebody come in late, a particular project that's getting done, whatever it is, those are all well and good. Now, if there's anything that somebody could say, I think that I'm being targeted because of whatever reason. It could be because I'm always that guy who's doing X, Y, or Z, or they only pick on my kind of soldier, whatever that kind of soldier is. Now we might be talking about things that are, as it relates to 600-20, right? Whether it's an EO, maybe it's it's probably not a SHARP related incident, but it could be again based off one of those protected categories. If you're constantly doing something to only female soldiers, and you're constantly rebuking only female soldiers, and to the left is a male soldier, and to the right is a male soldier who are doing the same infractions, and nobody can see, nobody has any awareness that anything is happening to them, then you're probably doing something wrong. You're probably pushing that left limit way too far. And so you need to dial it back and then go use some of your other resources. Again, whether it's your NCO support channel, your chain of command, you can talk to IG, you can talk to legal. Man, there's all kinds of people that you can get some regulatory guidance on. And again, man, all this is just Stoker's opinions, Stoker's thoughts and considerations. And if you have specific questions about how to deal with an issue, by all means, leave some comments down below. That way we can continue to keep this conversation rolling. Right? Does that make sense? So it's a tough one, to figure out what these limits are, because ultimately it's something that comes to us from experience, right? We learn something after we do something, and then we hone what we did. It's like a knife, man. You get a knife straight out of the package, it's probably sharp, and you start, I wonder if I can cut some wire, right? Yeah, you can probably cut some wire, but you just damaged that blade, so you need to sharpen it back up. And after you've sharpened it, you go back to use it again. You know what you can and what you can't do. So that's all a part of this process of trying something, doing something, and then dealing with the consequences and being okay with it, right? And you can only be okay with it if what you did was legally, morally, ethically correct, and it was not unsafe. I mean, if you're abiding by those things, you're probably going to be okay. And if you're communicating, again, with your supervisor about these issues, that's the number one thing I can tell you, man. Maintain an open line of communication with your supervisor. And so if you have a challenging issue with a soldier, deal with it. Face on. If you don't deal with it, you're going to have consequences. If you deal with it, you may, but if you're right, it's okay. I've had to talk about to some people about some decisions that Stoker has made, and because everything was right and by the book, I didn't violate any rules, articles, or regulations, those conversations went away. And some of those conversations took a long time to get through. But when you are right, you're right. So be right. Team, I hope you enjoyed the short conversation. If you did, make sure you like it, but make sure you leave some comments down below, because it is through the specific scenarios and things and challenges that we're dealing with that we can learn from each other. We turn into that sharpening stone for one another. Man, I appreciate all you guys, man. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked.